Hey friends, welcome to your Good Life Now podcast. I am Frankie Martinez, and I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. It's a very special series that we are in, talking about family, parenting, and I know that it's going to inspire you and encourage you. And of course, on this series, I am joined with our very first co-host, the one, the only, my wife, Maria Martinez.
Hello.
So it's great to have you back. Here we are talking about parenting, family, the strength of family, and all that awesomeness that we love, that we are passionate about, that we are focused about. So as promised on our last episode, I told you that I was going to share with you the very best parenting advice I've ever received. So without further ado, here it is. The quote I read is, I believe, a James Dobson book that really impacted and changed my life is, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. There it is. Powerful truth. I'm going to say it again to let that sink in, and then we'll talk about it. Rules without relationship lead to rebellion.
Yes.
So it was a very powerful quote for me, because what it helped me understand is, and what it means is, basically, as a parent, we have to give rules. Right? Like we always do. That's part of our job as a parent, is to give rules. Yeah. If not, a kid will stick their finger in the light socket outlet, you know? Yeah. A kid will never brush their teeth. Yes. A kid will never go to sleep. A kid will eat candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes. So
they won't learn.
So it's our responsibility to give rules, right? To give rules. And if you are a parent, I'm sure you're really good at it, because that's what parents do. We give rules. Don't touch that. Don't eat this. Put your clothes on. Get ready for school. Do this, all these different rules that we have. And the problem with that is, from a parent's perspective, we're doing a great job, right? Like, we're doing a really good job. Yeah. Because we are watching out, you know.
We're making sure they're okay.
They're okay. They're safe. They're not going to get electrocuted, not going to touch a hot stove, and all those crazy things, not drink any deadly poison, and all these things. That's why we buy all those locks. Remember all the locks we used to have around the house?
Yeah, for the cabinet doors.
The cabinet doors.
So they don't get into the pots and pans. And
the cleaning products, you know? So those are just rules that we do. You know, as parents, we have to set rules, and it's part of being a parent. Or at least a good parent. Anyways, so from our perspective, it's great, because we're doing our job. But if we were to kind of put ourselves in a child's perspective, if all they're receiving from their parents is rules, then, like the quote says, rules without relationship will lead to rebellion. Meaning they just see you as a type of a police who enforces the rules and gives you a citation if you break the rules. So the power is to influence your children and to instill those godly values, or values that you're trying to instill into them, is to have a relationship with them as well. Yeah. And it's super important. And that's what it taught me, is that we can't just give rules and expect kids to follow rules. We need to have a real relationship. Talking about having a good relationship and investing in that time with them, and to build a relationship with your children. Because when you build a relationship with your kids, then they know that you love them. Yeah. They know that you care. So the key is, I think, is when you're spending time with your children in a real way. I mean, a way that is building relationship between you and your child. Then when it comes time to lay down the rules, even if they don't like the rule, they're going to know that you love them. They're going to know that you care. They're going to know that this rule is horrible. I hate this rule. I wish I didn't have to do this, but I know my father loves me. I know my mother cares for me, because we have a good relationship. Yes. Right? So that's the heart of that quote. Anything you want to say in?
I just think that it kind of reminds me of, the popular quote, nobody cares what you know till they know that you care.
Yeah, true.
So I think it's kind of just goes hand in hand with that. Like, they're going to appreciate the advice sometimes a little bit later than, at the moment you give it. But they're going to know it's because you care. Yeah. That was the reason that you put that rule or gave that advice or put out those boundaries for them.
Yes, that's very true. And that's why this quote or saying really impacted our life. Mm-hmm. It changed the way we parent. And it went in hand with what we learned from some of the people that were discipling us and pastoring us. And one of them was like to set a time, a family day, literally a family day. And of course, at the time we were a lot younger, our kids were a lot younger, but we were pastoring a church, leading a church and as the head pastors. And so that was a lot of work and it was a lot of time. So we were very grateful to have some leaders in our life that told us that we needed to set time aside to not
focus
have
on the kids.
Yeah, not have anything to do. There was literally, I think it was Mondays for us. And Mondays was no church business at all. It was all family. It was literally all family. And sometimes I'd even try to take the day off of work on Mondays from my other job, and we would just enjoy family time and we would do things. And so that was great because it helped us, even in the busyness of life, make a day where it's just for family, just for each other. And I think because life was so stressful at that time that we had to really make sure that we're
intentional.
Very intentional. That's what we talked about last week, intentional parenting.
Intentional so we were, with our time.
Yes, we were. And on top of that, it was also being intentional with our kids individually, which I think is a very important thing, because as we were taught through some of our amazing leaders, and just, people who helped us out, is to take time for our kids individually, which is super important and something that we've always done since our daughters were very tiny, till now, even they're young adults and we're still taking time. And, we take time to go out with them individually. They know whose day is next. And I just got asked this week, when's our date? When's our day, Dad? I know we're up. When's our day? And okay, we'll schedule it, this day. So it's really cool. I think that's awesome that even at the age they are now, they look forward to our time together. And that's important because that's where instilling relationship comes into play. Where because we were very intentional about building a relationship with our kids when they were younger, here they are 20 years later, and they're still saying, when are we going out? When is our time? When are we going to go out? And I think that's great. And I think it's important to definitely spend time with your kids individually because they need that individual time with each parent. It's great to have family time and do things together, but we all know just because we're a family is comprised of individuals, and each individual needs to know that they are loved and valued, not just as a family unit, but as an individual person. Because every person is unique, different personalities, different gifts, different talents and traits. And that's the beauty of how God makes people very unique and different. So as a parent, or as a father, should I say, my job is to find that uniqueness in each of my children and honor that, praise that, treasure that, value that, let them know we're proud of that, and encourage that to flourish and grow. And as we do that individually, it just helps my personal bond between each of my children. And ultimately, it helps the family bond better together because we all know that we all have a place, that we all belong, that we're all, have a voice in this family. It's not just like one person or whatever,
Yeah. I think for me, because I homeschooled them, I spent a lot of time with them. And it was all together, at first it was the two girls, and then along came Zeke, and he joined, our school sessions. But I do think that, over the course of all those years, we got to spend a lot of time together in a different way. than I know you and the girls did, you know. But I really did get to know them just a lot, just watching them, how they deal with their school and being there for them to get through their little, you know, challenges with school and helping them learn how to, you know, breathe through it or whatever. And yeah, there were some tough times where I would call you like stressed out, but I think it was a beautiful time for me with my kids to really just get to know them and build a relationship with them that I wouldn't have had if I had put them in regular school and they were at school all day. So, you know, they were with me most days all day. And so we got to build a lot of relationship, build a lot of conflict resolution skills. Yeah. Conflict resolution. So I think that was a real big blessing that I don't think you go into homeschooling like thinking that, oh, we're going to build this great relationship. Like you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to homeschool them. But wow, does it really, you know, I'm just saying from my point of view. Yeah. That really was, I think, a big part of our relationship building.
Yeah. No, it was. Mm-hmm. It was a lot. And I remember as you were talking, even when Cynthia, our oldest, mm-hmm. who was our first child to graduate through being homeschooled, you know, and of course she was part of a larger charter school. So they had the full graduation, which was nice. And I remember on her graduation where she was in tears and she brought you the rose and she told you thank you for everything you did. And I think that was special.
Yes.
That was special.
Yes. That was a special moment that definitely paid off all those years.
And it did. And it realized because that was a bond that you two had that I wasn't involved in that. And, you know, not to the degree you were deeply involved in her schooling and helping her with that. So you championed her to success in graduation. Yes. And so it was that relationship where she knew you cared. Mm-hmm. She knew you valued her. You believed in her. You pushed her to succeed. And that's where your relationship grew strong. Yes. And I think for me, obviously, since I was working outside of the home mm-hmm. all day, so for me, I had to be intentional too. Yes. And I remember a scripture. I'm going to share it with y'all when I remember what it is, but I can't remember the exact verse. But it talked about when you come home from working in the field. Oh, yes, yes. Come home mm-hmm. and build your house.
Yes. Your job doesn't end when you get home. Yes. It actually starts.
It starts. So
yes, I think you read it from the same book or an article.
I think I just found it through my daily Bible. Yeah. Okay. And it was a very good scripture. I wish I had it right now, but it's fine. You get the heart of it. Is what it says is that when you come home from working in the field, mm-hmm. whatever your job is, your career, your profession, then it's time to work to build your home. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a eye opener for me mm-hmm. because it made me realize just because you're tired, mm-hmm. you're not off of work when mm-hmm. you get home. You're just your hat changes, mm-hmm. your focus changes, mm-hmm. but you're still working. Mm-hmm. So I read that when I was very young, in my early 20s, and that stuck with me. Yeah. It was another one of those things that stuck with me because it helped me realize that, okay, I'm working all day. Then I come home. Now it's time to work, mm-hmm. to build my home, mm-hmm. to build my family. So I would be intentional about that. It wasn't time to, okay, you all go out and you all go do shopping and I'm going to be home and, do whatever I want to do.
Because that's the, what do you call it? Like the
traditional.
What you see as the dad comes home and he gets on his recliner and don't bug dad. He just came home from work. He's tired. Real. And while those things are true, because I remember after you learned, read that scripture and it would, meant so much to you. I remember you being intentional because it is easy for you to be like, I'm tired, and not want to hear the big stories that the kids want to share. Yeah. I mean, because sometimes, those could be tired. Especially after a long day. I think that's really neat, but I think that's the reason, is because it is. Most of the time, that's what you see the dad
It's the culture. It's the culture that they want. And, honestly, thinking about it, they probably want that culture. So dads are distant from their kids and are distant from the family.
Yeah, because I think that if the dad just comes home and doesn't, pay attention, like they feel like they're entitled to that almost. You know what I mean? Which, yes, you deserve rest. Yes, you deserve, we all do. But you have to remember there's these little people waiting for you, and they're waiting for you to get home. So, they're looking forward to dad getting home. And so I know.
I remember Cynthia. Yeah, and I remember she was our firstborn. Yes. So we were living in this tiny little apartment
on the second floor.
On the second floor, but
she would stand on the dining chair.
Yeah, she would put the dining chair up on the window because she would hear my keys. Yeah. When I was walking up, I have the habit of pulling my keys out before I'm at the door, as I'm walking from the sidewalk to where our door was or up the stairs. And so every single day she would go up there and be waving out the window as I'm grabbing my keys coming up. And so it was cute and it was adorable because it just makes you realize how much your kids look forward to that. And it's a value. And honestly, to this day, as my son is 13 years old.
He still does.
I come home every day. Yeah. And when I get home,
he's like, Dad.
Feet are going down the stairs, and he comes down every single day without fail. My daughters, they'll wait till I get upstairs. They'll do whatever, But as, because our entrance to our home is on the first floor, and then so as I'm going up to the second floor where most of our living area is, sure enough, every single day, Zeke runs down, 13-year-old boy, comes downstairs, gives me a hug, gets so excited to see me. And to me, I value that because I see that my daughters used to do that. Yeah. Now they outgrew that, and
they do still get excited.
They do get excited, yes, but he's the only one that runs to the door still. But they used to. So I value that, and I hope that never changes. And it's going to be sad, I think, the day when that's not there anymore. To get home, to be celebrated when you get home is a good feeling. But I'm telling you, if you're listening to this podcast, the only reason that happens is because we have been intentional to build a relationship with our kids, to let my children know that I love them, I value them. And like I said, that verse really changed my mindset. And going back to what you were talking about, which I think is true, because the culture gives, at least the old culture would give this idea, like you said, the image of a father gets home and, he's tired, leave him alone. And so ultimately, that's the culture we see everywhere. Movies, magazines, ads, songs, everything. So for me, thank God for the Bible, because the Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So basically, the truth of the Bible is supposed to transform your mind so that you can live in a godly culture instead of just a culture that's being thrown at you. Yeah. And so because of that, my culture shifted in my mind, where I realized, there were literally times, sometimes, when I'd get home from work and I would just have to just sit in the truck for about a couple minutes, 5 minutes, just take a deep breath, and shake off whatever mess was on my day from the work or anything that's consuming my mind, and realize I'm about to enter my home. And when I enter my home, it's game time. It's showtime, because I realize, regardless of my day, when I get home, not only do my kids need my attention and time, but so does my wife, you. I do. And so I try my best. Sometimes it's not that easy, depending on what you go through, but I am very intentional to try my best to not bring my mess
or anything that was weighing you down in the day into
the family home, because it's a time, like I said, God really instilled in me, when I get home, it's time to build my family. It's time to build my home. And I value that. And I know that that's super important to do because, like I said, time, like we talked about last week, time is fleeting, you know, and we have our children, our time with our children is like that wet cement. Yes. It's a very limited time. And you know what? The funny thing is when you do that, it makes you feel better. It makes me feel amazing to come home and build a relationship with my family. And yes, it's not always easy. Sometimes build a relationship is getting through stuff with your own family, you know, and it's okay. But the thing is that if you're intentional about it and you're focusing and realizing that this is my mindset, I have to do this. I'm going to build my home when I get home. And that's building relationship. That's the price of building relationship. That's building a strong family. And so if you do that, when they're young, it'll pay off when they're older, you know, and just like the quote says, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. Yes. And let me tell you, the hardest time of a child's years in parenting is the teen years. Yeah. The teen years are the hardest times. Yes. And we know that if we didn't build the foundation of building relationship with them individually when they were younger, I don't know if we would have made it through the teen years the way we did, you know? And
because they bring their own set of challenges those years. I feel like that's going to happen just regardless. There's going to be some challenges in the teen years regardless. Yeah. So you're going to face something because they're going through things, they're growing, and so they don't know how to handle their emotions. So that ends up bringing in some challenges into, you know, the family relationships and stuff like that. So I think that's why I know a lot of people don't like to. I remember us. We were like, we're not going to experience the teen years, you know. We're like
hopeful people. We're so hopeful.
Tight with our kids, and we're this and that. And I thank God that they weren't horrible. Like, I know people have gone through really bad, you know, seasons with their kids, but there are challenges. There are challenges.
And we're going to talk about that a lot next week, right?
Because they are growing and they are going through things. So, you know, it is inevitable.
It's inevitable. Right? It's like the Thanos.
Yeah. You're going to experience some challenges during the teen years.
Yes,
there are going to be.
It's going to be the hardest times of being a parent.
Yes.
Is getting through those teen years. And so, like I said, we do want to talk. We discussed earlier that we do want to give a full episode to those teen years, at least us sharing a little bit about it. So that'll be next week. But this is setting it up for that because building a relationship is vital to your children. And I remember a lot of times when we would talk to other parents, when we were pastoring, I would teach a little bit about it and stuff like that. And one of the things that I learned and saw was that children want time with you more than they want gifts. And sometimes, you know, parents will give gifts to compensate for the time. But I promise you, if a kid had a choice to get a very expensive gift or to have a day at the park with their parent, they would pick a day at the park with their parent, hands down. Because and I think that's beautiful because it shows what a child truly values is to be loved by their parent. Yeah. That's what they want. Kind of reminded me of that movie we just watched.
I know.
We just watched. It's actually a really good movie. And you know what? I actually would recommend it on this podcast. I would. Yeah. If you have a Netflix account.
If you're a parent.
If you are a parent, if you are a human, it's called The Adam Project. And it's on Netflix. And it's a story about, I won't go into detail about it. It's about time travel, but it's not freaky like you would think. And what I think we watched it twice because we watched it with one of our kids and then another one of our kids didn't watch it. They want to watch it again. So we just watched it again with them. And even watching it twice, I think what I loved about it is just kind of ties into what you wish you could have known when you were a child now that you're a grown adult.
So sometimes when he didn't know as a child what he needed. But then when he was older, looking back, he's like, oh, I just needed this. I just needed that time with my dad. I just needed you know, his mom, you know, he needed to value his mom. Yes. You know, he didn't value her when he was little, and he didn't realize that until later.
It's a very action-packed movie. Mm-hmm. It's comedy, it's action, but there are a few major tear-jerking moments in that movie that actually have to do with parenting. Mm-hmm. And it's very powerful. And there's this one part that just reminded me right now when we were talking, when the father meets his son in the future, mm-hmm. and then he goes back to his time and he sees his son sitting there playing video games, and the dad goes to his wife and kind of feels like maybe I'm not being a good father, mm-hmm. you know? So he talks to the wife. He asks her, is our son okay? Mm-hmm. Do you think he's kind of, am I doing a good job? Mm-hmm. Am I okay? And what she tells him is so powerful, because the wife tells him, he doesn't need perfect. He just needs you. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just touching. I got it.
A little misty eye.
I get a little misty eye. It's beautiful, because listen to that quote. The mom tells the father, he doesn't need perfect. Your son doesn't need perfect. Mm-hmm. You're not the perfect dad. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Your son doesn't need a perfect dad. Mm-hmm. He just needs you. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, that's all he wants. He doesn't want, your kids don't want you to be perfect. Yeah. They don't need you to be perfect. Yeah. They just need you to be there. They just need you. Dang, man, I cannot even talk right now. Where the freaking tissue?
Okay. And I think that's true, like what you're saying, because for even, like I told you, for me, my dad he worked 7 days a week. Sunday through Saturday, he was working. But I think what made him, you know, some people would be like, oh, you know, he shouldn't work that much or whatever. Well, he was doing what he felt was right for the family and to provide. But I think in his way, he did spend time with us, where he would be like, at the end of the night, he'd sit down and watch TV, and he'd be like, come here. And he would make sure, there was 2 of us that were the youngest ones. And so he would always have us one on each side, and he would, you know, just sit there and watch TV with us. And that always felt, to me, it felt like he was giving me time. And it didn't mean we had to have this deep conversation or anything, but I knew that was his time where he called us and we just sat there and we would laugh and watch shows together or whatever. Exactly. And so you know, I think that kind of goes with that line, because it's like, for him, he was giving us time. We had him with us. It wasn't like he worked 7 days a week and then he slept and we never got to hang out with him or whatever. Yeah. He did spend time with us in his way, and it was nice.
No, I think that's great. I think that's a perfect example that you thought of, mm-hmm. because it's true. Like you're saying, you know what? My dad wasn't perfect, mm-hmm. in the fact that every Friday it's mm-hmm. Dad and Lupita and Maria Day, and you guys go out, and he never took you out, you know, on mm-hmm. father-daughter day. But you know what? He wasn't perfect, mm-hmm. but he was there, mm-hmm. and that's all you needed. And now your estimation of him is great, mm-hmm. because
even when he had these calm work days where he used to go and he was a landscaper, so he would even do, you know, individual homes aside from his Monday through Friday job for the county, and he would be like, you want to come? And so those were special times. You drive in the truck, go with him to a little job site. I would help him feed these birds that he would take care of, and then he'd buy a little treat or whatever while we're out. And, you know, we'd run an errand or something and then go back home. But just him inviting me or my brother to join him was always a special time. Yeah. And it wasn't, you know, like you said, this scheduled, you know, time or whatever, but he always made sure, like, I don't know. I felt like he did put in that time. Yeah. You know, so.
Yeah, and it's and that shows the value of relationship, mm-hmm. of being intentional about spending time with your children, you know, mm-hmm. regardless. And I think that's a perfect example that you brought up, mm-hmm. that it just kind of exemplifies it, because like we're talking about with the saying, with the quote, with what happened in the movie, it's just like your kids our kids need us. They don't need us to be perfect. They don't even know what perfect is. You know what I mean?
And we're never going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we have an estimation of how we want to be, but in actuality, if we would just spend time with our kids in whatever way we can. And it doesn't mean every single day that's all you do. I mean, there are times, where you have to focus on work. You got projects, you got things you're doing. And the awesome thing is if you spend some time with your kids, they'll understand the times that you can't. The problem is leaning too far where you're neglecting them and now you're never there. And guess what? But you're correcting them. You're telling them what to do. You're telling them to clean up clean the dishes and do all. If that's all they're hearing, ooh, you are sowing seed for a rough teen year. You are sowing seed for a very horrible teen season. So if you want to prevent that and have a peaceful home, it's spending time with your kids. That's not the end all answer. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it's the start. It's the foundation. It is truly the foundation. And so we probably should be wrapping up this episode today. Unfortunately, we're on a good flow here, but I do think we'll probably wrap this up. And I just think, if anything that you got out of this, that probably the best thing is just to focus on being intentional about having relationships with your children, and each of them individually, especially, because that's what they need and that's what they want. And we'll end with that quote from the Adam Project. Your children don't need perfect. They just need you. Yes. They just need you.
Your time and your love.
In whatever way you can give it. It don't have to. It's some people. It's going out, and that now I've been so intentional where we will have father-daughter dates with my daughters, and then me and my son will go out and we'll do fishing and camping and guitar playing, or we'll do whatever, concerts, whatever we do. And it's just a time where, we are sowing that seed into our children. Rules without relationship lead to rebellion. So the opposite would probably be rules with relationship lead to strong families. Yes. Strong families, healthy families. Well, thank you again for listening to the podcast. If you have any topics you would love to have us or our future guests to discuss, please email us at yourgoodlifenow@yahoo.com. DM us on any of our social media platforms. And next week, we are hoping to go deep into the tough teen years. Yes. So we're gonna tap into that a little bit and see how far we get. There's so much to talk about, even this topic, but there's just so much. Parenting is a lifelong journey and process. Yes. So if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you are in your parenting journey, whether you have little ones, older ones, or you're just listening to it to be a better grandparent, I don't know, wherever you're at in your journey, just be encouraged and know that parenting perfection is not attainable. But we can be intentional, and that's attainable. And the more we do to be intentional with our children, spend time with them, to build a relationship with them, to be there for them, it will make a lasting impression, and it will reap a great reward, even if it takes a while to see it. Yes. You will see it. So be encouraged, parents. Keep on loving on your children, building that relationship, create that environment in your home where the presence of God, peace, and strength are welcome. And as you do that, I believe you will build a strong family, and God will bless all of your efforts to do that. So God bless you guys. Thank you guys for listening. And until next week, cheers to your good life. You living that good life. I'm just living that good life. I'm just living that good life. I'm just living that good life. Good life.